Hello and welcome to our program. With Pyeongyang and Washington at odds over an all-or-nothing approach towards denuclearization, the presidential office of Cheong has proposed the concept of a good enough deal, which involves a more practical solution to the nuclear talks. Would a new strategy help bring the two sides back to the negotiating table? Here is what we have for you today.
On this week's A Road to Peace, we discuss a proposal South Korea has put forward to bridge the gap between North Korea and the U.S. We also shed light on the sanctions that Pyongyang wanted to see lifted at the Hanoi summit, which it claims affect its civilian economy. Lastly, we take a look at North Korean TV coverage featuring a modern nursing home in Pyeongyang.
For today's discussion, we're joined by Professor Kim Hyun-wook of the Korean National Diplomatic Academy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
So, U.S. President Donald Trump seems very confident that North Korean leader Kim Jong-un won't be conducting any more nuclear or missile tests. But then again, North Korea's Vice Foreign Minister Choi Son-hee hinted at the possibility of the resumption of such activities. What can you tell us about what's going to happen from now on?
When you look at what Choi Son-hee has mentioned, she's giving a twofold messages. First one is that unless there is some corresponding measures of the United States about what North Korea has done, which means the moratorium of nuclear and missile tests, North Korea would have intention and willingness to stop talking with the United States. That's first messages. Second message is that still Kim Jong-un and President Trump has very mysteriously good chemistry with each other. So that means that, okay, we're going to continue our dialogue with the United States, but please do something. It's now the U.S. turn to do something for North Korea. So this kind of message is very clear from Choi Son-hee's mouth. It's just a tug of war. And pressuring the United States. Before it begins with talk with the United States, maybe North Korea still wants to have sanctions lifted by the United States, and maybe destroy Yongbyon facilities, which from the United States perspective is not enough denuclearization measures. The major point is that continuation of talk, but unwilling to concede to the United States about the conditions and denuclearization measures.
So there are reports indicating that there is increased activity at the key missile launch site in Dongchang-ri. But then again, you're saying that it's not exactly for the missile launch, it's more for denuclearization talks. It's one of the North Korea's tactics?
Yeah, President Trump has continuously mentioned about the, moratorium of nuclear and missile tests as one important achievement by talking with North Korea. I think it was Security Advisor Bolton who also mentioned that if North Korea tests nuclear tests and missile tests, that would have a very important, tremendous effect on Trump's thinking about North Korea. So I don't think these kinds of moves in Dongchang-ri site is a serious side by North Korea, but I think it's some kinds of pressure measures upon the United States. President Trump, you mentioned about the moratorium of nuclear tests and missile tests, and what if North Korea, launches all these, missiles and tests of nuclear and missile, facilities again? That would definitely, impact President Trump's domestic, political, popularity. So I think, North Korea knows that. North Korea knows that President Trump is using nuclear issues, North Korean nuclear issues for domestic purposes. So I think kind of touching that issues, trying to change what Trump is thinking about North Korea issues. But I don't think that will be really easy for North Korea to change that kind of mindset of President Trump.
I see. Well, Choi Son-hee did say that Kim Jong-un might walk away from the nuclear negotiations, and she added that Kim Jong-un could release a statement on his post-Hanoi summit activities. But can you give us a thought or two on what kind of plans would be included in those announcements soon to be released?
What Choi Son-hee mentioned about all these kinds of, stopping moratorium of nuclear tests and missile tests and a possible statement by Kim Jong-un, all these things are just tactics to talk with the United States, I think. And maybe waiting for some kinds of response from the United States. What North Korea wanted was that, United States voices that, okay, why don't we begin talks in working level, talk about narrowing down the gaps. And then North Korea can come out and begin a working level talk with the United States. But there was no sincere immediate measures like that. Pompeo and Bolton has been mentioning the same things. For example, the United States wants to have a comprehensive deal, not a piecemeal deal, and open for a dialogue, but it all depends upon North Korea.
Right.
Not
Same
a very
words.
active and immediate measures are taken by the United States. So I think North Korean tactic has been pretty much stalemated now. I mean, Kim Jong-un has nothing to say right now. If Kim Jong-un's statement is pretty much the same statement as Cheong, why should Kim Jong-un say something about the current relationship? So I think North Korea will take some time until Kim Jong-un makes some statement. And if there comes some critical junctures about the relationship and denuclearization measures between North Korea and the United States, I think Kim Jong-un would then, decide to make some statement.
Well, you did say that North Korea may be waiting for the United States' response, but U.S. officials like Mike Pompeo and John Bolton have been saying continuously remarks from the U.S. side, but then President Trump has been keeping silent, even after Che's remarks. Why do you think that is?
If President Trump says something, I think that would be something decisive. I think President Trump is keeping silent because, by keeping silent, this is another pressure response to North Korea. Secretary Pompeo and Bolton, what they're saying is pretty much the same thing that they have argued before. Right after the Hanoi summit, the U.S. position was a comprehensive deal, no sanction lifting unless there are some, one-shot deal of denuclearization by North Korea, all that kind of things. So I think repeating all these things would be some kinds of pressure, but at the same time, bigger pressure on North Korea about the denuclearization measures as the way the U.S. wants, by keeping silent by President Trump would be, I think, a bigger pressure on North Korea. So I think kind of tactics of negotiation by President Trump.
Now, Blue House, in the meantime, proposed a good enough deal to break the impasse between Washington and Pyongyang. Can you tell us what this deal means and whether it will actually satisfy Washington and Pyongyang's demands?
After the Hanoi summit's broken, the role of South Korean government is becoming more and more important. So I think the government is pretty much pressured to do something about, making these two countries to come together to talk about these issues. So I think what Cheongwade announced was two things. First one is that about the roadmap of denuclearization. Second one is you just mentioned that good enough deal, which means small deal is good enough deal. Roadmap is targeting North Korea because the U.S. has been arguing on and on that, okay, North Korea, you don't need to declare your nuclear capabilities now. You don't need to accept all the inspectors and get verified. What you need to do is just to, provide a roadmap of denuclearization. That's what Vice President Pence has mentioned last year. Accept the roadmap if North Korea proposes a roadmap of denuclearization, but forget about the comprehensive deal. And to North Korean side, small deal is good enough deal. So let's just go for the small deal, and I'll persuade the United States about small deal. So by proposing the roadmap issues and small deal issues, I think South Korean government is trying to persuade North Korea and the United States altogether to make them come back to the table for denuclearization talks. But I'm not sure if this would be really successful because the U.S. and North Korea, their stance is very firm. Think about what happened after the Kim Jong-un's New Year speech this year and even before. What North Korea has been arguing is that, okay, we return the American soldiers' remains back to the United States. They have, dismantled the, Punggye nuclear site. So North Korea has done already many things. So it's now the turn of the United States to do something. That's a very continuous and tenacious position of the North Korea to the United States. So I don't think it would be really easy for the two countries to concede to each other and narrow the big gaps between two countries. I think South Korean government has to do something more than just providing the concept of roadmap and not good enough deal, that kind of thing. I don't think it will be enough measures and tactics.
So that's clearly not what Washington wants for North Korea's denuclearization. So should we be worried of South Korea and the United States drifting relations when it comes to ways to approach North Korea?
U.S. and South Korea, I think they're continuously coordinating their positions. Of course, they have different attitudes because they are different countries. The U.S. and South Korea, even conservative government in South Korea, they had some different opinions from the United States government. So two governments, allies, but different opinions and different objectives, strategic objectives. They're trying to harmonize those differences. That's what happens all the time. So I think the good point is that the U.S. and South Korea continuously talking and discussing about the North Korea issues. That's a good point. But the bad point is that after the Hanoi summit, the U.S. stance has been really firm and hardline. Before, U.S. was very flexible. Late last year, the U.S. government official, senior government official I met, talked about the possible acceptance of North Korean approaches, which means step-by-step simultaneously. So if North Korea denuclearizes in its first phase, the U.S. would be willingly lift sanctions in its first phase. So kind of step-by-step issues. But now things are, changed. I mean, the U.S. attitude and position is that, okay, no more step-by-step simultaneous. North Korea has to do something about, in denuclearization in a comprehensive and one-shot deal. And then U.S. will do something for North Korea. So the attitude has been changed completely. So I think that's something that would make a South Korean government, difficult time in negotiating, in making two countries to come back to the table.
Well, like we mentioned, the main sticking point in the failed Hanoi summit was the scope of sanctions relief. The U.S. argues that North Korea demanded the complete removal of sanctions, while the North claims it asked for a partial lifting of sanctions that affect the people's livelihoods. Here is more.
Basically, they wanted the sanctions lifted in their entirety, and we couldn't do that.
일부 해제, 구체적으로는 유엔 제재결의 총 11건 가운데서 2016년부터 17년까지 채택된 5건, 그중에서 민수 경제와 인민생활에 지장을 주는 항목들만 먼저 해제하라는 것입니다.
After a high-stakes summit in Hanoi broke down over the differences on the scope of sanctions relief for North Korea, there is renewed attention on the sanctions which Pyongyang claimed affect its civilian economy. The UN Security Council adopted a total of 11 sanctions resolutions on North Korea. Resolution 2270, adopted in March 2016, marked a sharp departure from past primary sanctions, which focused on a ban on exports of goods or materials for North Korea's nuclear or missile programs. Instead, the resolution called for secondary sanctions banning North Korea's key exports to tighten the noose around its economy.
북한은 제재 해제에 대해서 양을 놓고 얘기한 것이고 미국은 제재 해제 문제를 질로 놓고 파악을 한 것인데 2016년부터 17년까지의 있었던 북한이 얘기한 5건의 제재가 실제 이제 북한의 피부로 와닿는 제재, 북한 경제에 심각한 좀 타격을 줄 수 있을 만한 효과가 있는 제재거든요. 그에 대해서 이제 북한은 11건 중에 총 11건 중에 5건만 해제해달라고 한 것이다. 절반도 안 되는 양이다라고 얘기한 것이고 미국 같은 경우에는 그 5건의 제재가 굉장히 효과가 있는 것이기 때문에 그게 제재의 거의 전부다.
Passed in March 2016, Resolution 2270, for the first time, banned North Korean exports of minerals and prohibited the regime from opening new bank branches in UN member states. In November of the same year, the UN Security Council imposed a cap cutting North Korea's largest export, coal. Just 33 days after the North carried out an ICBM test in 2017, the UN body adopted Resolution 2371, imposing a total ban on all exports of coal. A month later, it kept refined petroleum exports to North Korea at 2 million barrels and introduced a full ban on purchasing North Korean textiles, one of the main sources of the country's export revenue. Resolution 2397 contained the latest and the toughest UN sanctions against Pyongyang. It sought to ban nearly 90% of refined petroleum exports to the country by reducing the existing cap to 500,000 barrels.
유류가 제대로 소통이 안 될 경우에 주민들이 생활에서 겪는 고통, 또 전기 생산이 어렵기 때문에 많은 부분에서 에너지원을 얻지 못하는 차원에서의 고통. 그렇기 때문에 유류가 제한된다는 것은 북한 경제의 혈관을 막는, 피가 못 통하게 하는 그런 효과를 가져올 수밖에 없다.
In 2018, North Korea's total trade volumes with China, its largest trading partner, dropped by 51.9% from the previous year to $2.4 billion. The Communist state's trade with Russia also shrank dramatically. According to data released by the Federal Customs Service of Russia, trade volumes between the two countries in 2018 totaled $34 million, down 56.3% from the year before.
김정은 집권기에 2012년부터 16년 정도까지 약 한 1% 정도의 성장률을 기록을 했습니다. 그런데 2017년도는 한국은행이 추정하기로는 마이너스 3.5% 성장을 할 것이라고 추정을 하고 있거든요. 특별히 김정은 시대 2016년도에 경제 정책을 바꾼 게 없는데 그 당시 2016년부터 17년까지 실질적인 제재들이 등장을 한 이후에 북한의 경제 성장률이 마이너스로 돌아섰다고 하는 것은 제재가 그만큼 지금 효과를 발휘하고 있다. 이제 그런 반증으로 보입니다.
There are many speculations as to how the North Korean economy is able to survive sanction after sanction, including a surge in Chinese tourists traveling to North Korea and the use of cryptocurrencies acquired through hacking. But as sanctions are affecting not only ordinary citizens but also the privileged elite, experts agree that they are likely to have grave consequences on the economy if prolonged.
북한도 이제는 양당 체제 국가다 그렇게 얘기를 하거든요. 그러니까 노동당과 장마당이 지배하는 국가다라는 이야기가 있을 정도인데 그랬을 때 이번에 하노이 회담을 통해서 제재 완화를 이끌어내고 장마당의 불만을 해소할 만한 선물 보따리를 가져와야 되는데 이번에 이제 그걸 실패를 하게 된 것이죠. 그래서 올해 이제 이 상황들을 어떻게 헤쳐나가야 할지 그게 아마 북한, 특히 이제 김정은 위원장의 고심이 계속 깊어지고 있을 것으로 보입니다.
In the aftermath of the Hanoi summit and a failed attempt at sanctions relief, Pyongyang is under increased pressure to find its own way out of the current dead end. It remains to be seen how its economic challenges will affect the course of future denuclearization talks.
So like we have been discussing, North Korea was desperate to get the sanctions lifted, especially the ones that affect the civilian economy. But that actually means that the sanctions have worked, that it brought North Korea back to the negotiating table with the U.S. Then shouldn't Washington keep going with this card when it negotiates with North Korea?
Yes, I think the U.S. Position is very clear that, President Trump has been mentioning this on and on, even in Hanoi, that, U.S. is not in a hurry. President Trump is not in a hurry. Will take a lot of time and meet more times with Kim Jong-un, which made Kim Jong-un pretty much concerned about the deal at the time in Hanoi. The important thing that makes the United States to be relaxed and not in a hurry is because there are sanctions, by the United States, sanctions implemented very well right now. Many people are worrying about the role of China. I'm also worried about the role of China in sanctions, implementation of sanctions. But at least official statistics shows that comparing 2017 and 2018, 90% of North Korean export to China has decreased. comparing 2017 and 18. And also, entire trade between two countries have decreased for about 50%. Of course, this is not something to make everybody sure about the implementation of sanctions, because it's just what the official statistics are telling. And maybe central government of China is doing a lot of efforts to prohibit the trade between two countries. Maybe, local governments and businessmen, they will, behave somewhat differently. Some businessmen, they need money and bribe local government official and maybe allow some secret trade between two countries. That's something possible. And when you look at the some of the commodities prices inside North Korea, Changmadang, which is the market, casual market inside North Korea, the prices of commodities which is traded in the markets inside North Korea is very, very stable. So that means even though official trade and economic discourse has been pretty much prohibited by the UN Security Council sanctions, still there are some secret trade going on between North Korea and China, which is making North Korean economy sustained for a while. So I think that is something the U.S. experts especially are worrying about. But I think still pretty much the China, at least officially, is making much effort to make these sanctions to be efficient. So I think as time goes by, North Korean economy will be experiencing difficulty. And I think what Kim Jong-un would do at the time would be something that I'm very much curious about.
I see. Well, as always, we'll watch clips from North Korea's KCTV to better understand the country's culture and society. This week's selected clips feature a nursing home in Pyeongyang. Let's take a look.
여기가 바로 경치 아름다운 대동강 기슭에 자리 잡고 있는 평양 양로원입니다. 자기의 신체상, 연령상 특성에 맞게 적절한 운동으로 몸을 단련합니다. 놀랍게도 나이 많은 노인들이 젊은이들 못지않게 여러 가지 운동 기제들을 척척 다루고 있습니다. 유치 뿌려질 때마다 합창하듯 터져오르는 보양생들의 환성 소리는 저도 모르게 경기에 뛰어들고 싶은 흥취를 자아냅니다. 인생의 롱연기에도 청춘 시절의 패기와 정열이 넘쳐 있는 어린이들의 얼굴마다에는 기쁨의 웃음꽃이 활짝 피어 있습니다.
100살 살겠습니다. 꼭 약속했습니다. 요렇게.
우리가 여기 양로원에서 본 행복한 할아버지 할머니들의 모습은 사회적으로 돌봐줘야 할 대상들을 적극 보살펴주는 미풍이 사회적 기풍으로 온 나라 대가정의 가풍으로 된 사회주의 내조국에서만 찾아볼 수 있는 모습이었습니다. 이 땅이 흐르는 날과 달처럼 평범하면서도 예사롭지 않은 양로원에서의 이 하루를 통해서도 우리는 또다시 새겨안았습니다.
The elderly seem very happy at the nursing home because it even has very good health equipment and also massage devices. What did you make of this? I think it shows how North Korea is trying to care more about the well-being of its people.
By doing all these things, maybe Kim Jong-un is trying to using different tactics to tame North Korean people. Before, one of the important tactics that the North Korean leader used to make North Korean people to be loyal to its leader was by mobilizing them to make North Korea war-like situations, all the kind of things. Pretty much a Cold War mindset. Leaders were doing that. His father and his grandfather. But I think Kim Jong-un is trying to change its tactics, kind of providing North Korean people some kinds of economic benefits, satisfy them, and make them too loyal to himself. I mean, things have changed a lot. North Korean people, they are not the same people, as the ones during the 1990s. Now the people know the capitalistic economic system. They all experience the market systems inside North Korea. So I think what North Korea leader needs to do is not to tame them in a war situation case by using that kind of case, but giving them some kinds of economic benefit and material needs.
Well, I do think that that's going to earn him a lot of popularity. Well, Professor Kim, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now, unfortunately, this is the last episode of A Road to Peace. Next week, we'll return with a new series to shed light on achieving peace and prosperity on the Korean Peninsula. Thank you so much for having tuned into our show. Goodbye for now.